Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Perfect Your Pitch webinar with Manassah. We're very excited that you're all interested in participating in our very first virtual pitch competition. It's very exciting for us to be doing that, and we are so thankful to Manassah, who has been an amazing strategic partner to the Chamber from our inception, has worked with us and with businesses, providing advice and insight from the very beginning. And so thank you so much, Manassah, for being here today. I'll ask you to introduce yourself and tell folks a little bit more about who you are and what you do, and then we will jump into the webinar. And welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. So my name is Manassah Bradley. If anyone's wondering, it's an Irish name. I'm your typical Irish-Italian mix from inner city Boston. I grew up in East Boston. Degree in economics from Northeastern University. I have an MBA in entrepreneurship from Babson College. And what I like to do, what I tell people that I do is my goal was to help people get out and stay out of poverty. So the goal was, how do I help people to get out and stay out of poverty? I decided that the best thing that I could do was to teach people how to start and grow a business. So for the last 20 years, I've been working for a lot of different economic development agencies, teaching business planning and strategy. And what I do right now is I'm a business advisor with the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center in Fall River. And I'm also a senior program manager for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. I am in charge of the delivery and the logistics for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses National Training Cohort out of Babson. And then I have my own private clients that I do strategic work for. So that's who I am. And we are here today to talk about the pitch competition. So I have a slide, it's about 14 or 15 slides. We'll go through the slides. Feel free, it's a small group, so feel free to, if you have a question, enter the question in the chat box. We have somebody who's monitoring that for us, so we can get your questions answered through the chat box. Or also just sort of pipe up and ask a question, and I can stop. I just want this to be very informal. The goal is to get you guys as much information as possible, and then you guys will be off and running. Sound good? All right. Let's see. All right, so dates and dollars. So today is Perfect Your Pitch Q&A. The first pitch decks are due August 6th. We have the competitor cut August 12th. The video pitches are due for those who make it to cut on August 27th. And then September 2nd is the next competitor cut, and then the live pitches are on September 18th. So the prizes are $10,000, $5,000, $2,500, and then I believe it's a 6-month subscription to the Capital Network. So that's sort of it in a nutshell, and I'm sure you already have all this information, so we won't spend too much time on that. All right, so I am one of the judges, and from the judge's perspective, what I'm really looking for when I make my decision to either award money or not award money is really, who are you? Who are you? Who is your team? And what are you doing? So what I really want you to do is tell me a story that I can then relate to other people. And if the story resonates with me, I'll be like, all right, this seems like a really good company. This is a really good idea. They have a really solid opportunity identified. If we award them the 10 grand, that they will have some measurable impact with that money. And what I really need you to convey to me as a judge is that you can really pull it off. What I don't want to do is award money to somebody or to a company and then not have them use that money in a way that benefits both the company and the larger community, either through jobs, retain jobs, or some economic benefits. So that's really what I'm looking for. What are you going to do with the money? Will there be net impact in terms of revenue for you, jobs saved, jobs created, economic value for the community, the company? But most importantly, I'm looking at who are you and can you really pull this off? So during your presentation, you should be really thinking about trying to convey to me a story and your ability to pull it off. So the pitch itself, it should be no more than 10 slides max. And as I said earlier, you should be able to tell a very clear, easy to repeat story. It should be what we call EEC, effective, efficient, and compelling. I know that a lot of people don't like numbers, but everybody should have numbers in their PowerPoint deck, and the numbers should be realistic. If they're too out of, sort of out of the sky, too, in out of orbit, and they're not realistic, I'm just going to discount them, and I'm not going to believe anything else that you tell me. So what I want you to really think about is to know your numbers, and most importantly, if you get beyond like the first and second cut, I'm going to start asking you, what about the underlying assumptions? So you're going to come up with sales figures, you might come up with some cost of goods sold, whatever that might be as you sort of project forward for your numbers. I'm going to be asking you, what are the underlying assumptions? So I do have a question from Doug. So is the pitch geared more towards how you use the winnings versus focus mostly on your business value proposition, since the first round is limited to 10 slides? It's always about, from my perspective, how you use the winnings and the net impact. So yeah, so I guess it's a combination of both. You should have a really solid business value proposition, and you really should be portraying to me that you can pull it off. And then anonymous attendee, what kinds of things were we conveying with the numbers? We'll get to the number slide in a second. But I think overall it should be both about knowing your numbers, knowing the underlying assumptions behind those numbers. At the very beginning, I might not ask you about the underlying assumptions, but if you're going to come up and say to me, we think we can increase sales by, I don't know, 5%, I'm going to ask you why you believe it's 5%, not 10%. If you think that I may be looking at your numbers and benchmarked against another company or another competitor. And if your numbers are either revenue or cost of goods sold, if they vary vastly, are different, if they're different than what I would consider normal numbers, I would want to ask you why your numbers are different. What are the underlying assumptions that would give you different numbers than what I would consider the norm? And as long as you have a good explanation, maybe you found a better way to source materials, maybe you found a better way to manufacture that's cheaper, or faster way to bring something to market. As long as you have a solid underlying assumption, that's what I'm really looking for. All right, so the first thing I want to say to you, like right off the bat, is this. When you're making a pitch, the pitch deck and the PowerPoint is not your pitch presentation. It is, but it isn't. You should be able to give your pitch with or without the PowerPoint deck. And the PowerPoint deck should just be very, very minimalistic in the information you provide on it. Because what I want to be doing is listening to you, listening to how you convey your story, listening to what you tell me versus reading it off a PowerPoint deck. If you have a ton of words and a ton of bullet points, when you're telling your story, people will tend to read the PowerPoint deck behind you or that's on the screen and not listen to what you're saying. What you really want to do is get people listening to you, listening to your story, and really understanding how you think and how you approach your business, because that's what's important. The PowerPoint deck, the colors, the slides, motion, whatever you have on that to make it look slick, really doesn't impress me at all. I've seen enough PowerPoint decks where I'm just sort of like, it should just be in the background, and it should be highlighting to me the important points that you're speaking about, but it should not be the presentation. So imagine that you're ready to give your pitch, and the video is down, and all we have is audio. You should still be able to give me that pitch effectively with just the audio and without the pitch deck in the background. Sound good? All right. Let's see. Okay, so one of the slides. So I'm going to go through a bunch of slides. The slides you can put in any order that you want, and these are only suggestions. You can Google, PowerPoint pitch deck, and there's a ton of stuff out there. The one that I like to use, if you're going to get investor funding, is one by Garage Ventures. It's a guy named Guy Kawasaki who created this probably 10 or 15 years ago, and I still think it's very relevant. But feel free to do your own Google search, look for PowerPoint decks, find one that fits for you. But overall, these next 10 or so slides really should should be a good sort of basis or a starting off point for you to make your own PowerPoint slides. So the company overview is basically, it's very simple. It's what do you do and how do you make money? You know, don't assume that I know how you make money. You may have a coffee shop, or you may have a childcare center, or you might do something. I'll have my own assumption about how you make money, but that's not necessarily true. You may do it very differently. You might have a unique spin or twist. I was just talking to a company this morning. They have a childcare center, and my assumption was that they made money by having a physical space where the kids come in, they sit down, the parents drop them off, they pick them up later on in the afternoon, they pay money, it's all good. That was my assumption. I was completely wrong. Their childcare center is all virtual. Had they not said that, I would have assumed that they made money differently. So the company overview is just very quick. What do you do? How do you make money? We're talking 30 seconds, not a lot of time. I would like to have you present me a snapshot of your business. So with all of the challenges going on today with the pandemic and the economic shutdown, tell me what the current state of your business is. I've been making phone calls for the last 2 days. I've spoken to about 150 CEOs, just sort of trying to get to assess where everybody is for my clients. And I'm finding that there are 3 stages. Some people are doing really, really well. I mean, they're crushing it, making tons of money. Others are just holding their own, and others are really like, on the verge of going into bankruptcy. So what I would want you to do is tell me the current state of your business, the challenges. Tell me that you've received some PPP money or idle money. Let me know what you've done to pivot, where there's opportunities for growth. Whatever might be going on, what I'm really looking for is to gain understanding, that you understand your business as it is today, the reality of the challenges of today, and what you're going to do to position yourself for growth. Because as you're going through your presentation from a judge's perspective, I should be saying in my mind, yes, I understand that. Yes, I agree with your statement. Yes, I agree with you. Yes, I agree with you. Because the more I say yes, when it comes to the end, and I have to ask myself, do I give this individual, the nod to move forward? You've already primed me to be saying yes for you. So throughout the presentation, you should be presenting me with information that I, in the back of my mind, will say, yes, 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 yes. Let's move forward with this candidate. So for the snapshot of your business, really what I'm looking for is, do you have a complete understanding of the realities of your business today? And do you see an opportunity for growth? Because if you don't see an opportunity for growth, my question is, then why would I want to award you, a spot as we move on through the competition? If you're like, yeah, I'm done. Like, my business is really struggling and I don't know what I'm going to do. That's not good enough. You have to say to me, like, business is really, really tough, but here's where we see, like, rays of sunshine among the storm clouds. And even if you're in a tough spot now, if you can say to me, listen, we're in a really tough spot now, but this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to use the money to position ourselves for growth when this thing turns around, that's awesome. What I'm looking for is the way you think. All right, the opportunity. You may or may not have an opportunity identified, which is okay. But if you do have an opportunity, what I want you to do is briefly describe the nature of your company and the opportunity that you're going for. Once again, you've got to convince me that the business can be successful, that there's an opportunity for you to be successful. What we don't want to do, this is my perspective as a judge, is give somebody money. If the ship is sinking and there's no way of saving it, then why have you move on? So you must convince me of the potential success of this business. And if you can do that and you can add on to that, not only are we going to be successful, we're ultimately going to be poised to create new jobs, have economic impact for our communities, economic impact for our employees, for the company itself. This is what I'm looking for in the opportunity. The clearer the opportunity and the clearer your strategy to capitalize on that is what I'm looking for. But if you don't have it yet, that's okay. Just convince me that you are actually looking for it and that you will be able to find an opportunity somewhere. First of all, am I going too fast? Is this the right pace for everybody? So maybe if you want me to slow down, just throw up a question and say slow down, but I want to be able to give you guys time for questions at the end. So product, services, industry, I want you to tell me what it is that you're selling, and if there's truly an unmet need in the marketplace, that's better for me. I want to know sort of what it is you're selling, why it's important for you, why it's important for the community, why you are going to stand apart from your competitors. It could be something simple like you're just closer to the market than they are. You're on a, maybe you have a cafe and you have a parking lot next to you that allows you to have more drop-in customers, whatever it might be. If you can and you have the opportunity to do some research, I would love to understand what's happening in your industry and where the industry is headed and what you're going to do to capitalize on those industry trends. So it can be short and sweet, but if you say to me, I don't know, like I'm working on a product now for men's grooming products, and I did some research, and the industry trends are that the men's grooming products market is going to take off and increase by something like 28% a year for the next 5 years. If you can give me an industry statistic like that, that says to me, okay, so there's opportunity for this company to grow. So really what I'm looking for is sort of a little bit of a deeper dive on what it is that you sell, how you sell it, what characteristics of the product or service that set you apart from your competition, and what trends are happening in the industry, and how you can capitalize on those trends. And once again, you may or may not have this information, it's okay. What you should be doing is thinking about, from a judge's perspective, what information can I give them that they're going to say, yes, 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 let's get this guy, let's get this gal to the next part of the competition. So the more information you can give me about why this is a good industry to be in, why you're going to be successful throughout this economic shutdown, and when we reopen up, you're positioning yourself well, this is the stuff that we're looking for. Market analysis. If you can provide me a clear description of your target market and any market segments that exist, that'd be great. What I don't like is generalities, like, oh, we sell hamburgers and hamburgers are a $200 billion market. It's like, well, that's too big. If I'm selling hamburgers in Providence, then my market is just the Providence market. And, if I, even though, Providence is pretty big, it's not everybody in Providence. It's only the people that eat hamburgers in Providence. It's the only people that eat hamburgers that, walk by my store. So what I really want you to do is provide me a clear description of how big your target market is. So you don't have to give me like exact numbers. I'm not looking for like, the minutia, but what I'm really looking for is, does this business owner really understand what it is that they're selling, who they're selling it to, the market segment that they're in, and the potential market size and growth rate. So if you, I should be able to walk down the main street of Boston or Providence or some other city, and you and I should be able to walk down the street, and you should be able to point at people and say, that's my customer, not a customer, not a customer, not a customer, that's my customer, not a customer, not a, that's my customer. I want you to be able to have a really clear definition. And it could be if you're selling B2B, like B2 business, you should be able to tell me too, like, my company sizes are only, 5 million in revenue. They've been in existence for 20 years, whatever it might be. Once again, I'm really looking for your understanding of who you're actually selling to and what's going on with that market. Is that market shrinking? Is that market growing? And if the market's shrinking, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because when markets shrink, sometimes there's opportunity in that. Any questions? We good? Or do we have a question? I do have experience with national and international markets, and there are other judges who do as well. And if you need any help, if I can't help you, I can definitely help you get information, or I can connect you with people who can help you. All right, sales strategy. Once again, short and sweet. Provide me a short summary of your company's strategy for bringing your product or service to market. When I say bring it to market, my assumption is that you're already selling your products and stuff like that. But what I'm looking for is, in the midst of this shutdown, you're going to have to, you may or may not have to reintroduce your product again to either your existing customer base to get them to come back to you, or you may have to introduce your product to a new existing, a new marketplace. So what I'm really looking for is, what are you doing from a sales strategy standpoint? And can you lay out for me, can you map out for me the steps, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Once again, it doesn't have to be like this super detailed, minutia. What I'm really looking for is, do you understand how you need to create a sales funnel? Like, what is your conversion rate? And once again, I'm looking for the process. Do you understand the process? Because if you understand the process, I can then ask you follow-up questions later on. But right now, what you're just trying to convey to me through this pitch is that you understand who you're selling to, you understand your target market, you understand your sales strategy, and what I'm looking for are the tactics, like very tactical. From a tactical standpoint, what are you going to do? So good, and you might have multiple channels. You can talk to me about, like, we have 2 different ways to reach our target customer. This is what we're going to do. We have a website, we have direct force, we're selling wholesale, whatever it might be. Once again, it's an overview. I don't need the minutia, but what you should be doing is helping me understand what it is that you're selling, to whom you're selling, how you actually sell it, and then convince me that you really know how to do this. And if you can, incorporate into your story how the addition of a $10,000 bump would help you. So if you're going to use the $10,000 to, I don't know, develop a better website, tell me that, the $10,000 we used to develop a better website, but then go one step beyond that and say, by developing a better website or developing a direct sales force, this is the net impact that it will have, because it tells me, and I'm not going to hold you to it. I mean, obviously this is just this is our best guess, but what it does is it tells me, okay, this business owner has really thought this through and understands that by, using the $10,000 to build a new, online website or an online marketplace for their website, that they understand that it will have a net positive effect on their business. And that's what we're really looking for. All right, the competition. One of the biggest pitfalls that I see when people talk about competition is that they list that there is no competition. Everybody has competition. So what I want to hear from you is, who are your direct and indirect competitions? So when I have, for me, when I go to work, I have a couple of options. I can drive, I can take a helicopter, I can take the commuter rail. Like, I have all kinds of competition. So even though if you think it might not be competition, list it down. And what I really, once again, I'm looking for how you think. So I want you to think about, who is my direct and indirect competition, and how am I positioned to beat them? What people tend to do when they talk about their competition is they tend to badmouth the competition, and there's 2 problems with that. One, as someone who is an investor in some companies, you might not know that the company that you're badmouthing, I'm a partial investor in, so that's never really good. But it also makes you look bad. What I want to hear is, this is what my competition does, and this is what we do that's better and different, and this is why our target customer values us more than they value the competition. Or, with the $10,000, this is what we're going to do to make ourselves more competitive than the competition. Once again, you're weaving the $10,000 into the story, saying that we understand who our competitors are. We are at a competitive disadvantage at the moment because we don't have an online portal. But with the $10,000, we're going to increase our website, increase our online portal capabilities. And with that, we would now become better positioned or better competitively than our competition would be. And then if you can, if you're sort of starting off and you're entering into a new market, maybe you're because of your, like we'll use the child care center. The child care center that I was talking to this morning, because of their physical space, they can't de-densify or downsize enough to make it economically viable for them to stay in the business. So they've pivoted, and they're now doing virtual. It's all going to be a virtual online child care, an online market. And the nice thing about that is that now it doesn't limit them to just kids in their neighborhood. They can take kids from all over the country. And when we were talking about sort of the current and future barriers to entry, like this is a really cool idea. So what are the barriers to entry? Is anybody else going to be able to do this easily? It may be easy enough, but what I want to understand from you is that you've actually thought this through. So if you're going to go down this new path, you know, how easy it is for people to follow you and be competitive and maybe potentially beat you. So once again, I'm not looking for specific, like super detailed stuff, but I am looking to see from a pitch standpoint, have you thought this through? You know, what are your underlying assumptions and does it make sense? Now, throughout the pitch competition, what you should be thinking about is, okay, I've got these judges listening to me. At the end of the competition, at the end of the pitch, I don't want this conversation to stop. I don't want it to end. I want them to continue asking me questions. So throughout the presentation, you should be feeding me information that I say, yes, 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 this is really good information. And at the end of the presentation, I'm going to be so thrilled and like sort of like so sucked into your story that I'm going to stop and ask you questions. So remember, the pitch competition just isn't about the pitch itself. A lot of what happens and the decisions we make happen after the pitch is done. So you want to get us engaged in your pitch so that we can ask questions, the follow-up questions. And that's where I consider sort of the yay or nay decisions are made when we start asking you questions at the end. So technology special know-how. If you have some secret sauce, some secret IP, some technology, whatever it might be that's going to separate you from the competition, I want to know because that's valuable. So let us know, and maybe you have, maybe you don't, it's okay. So if you don't have a high-tech component to your presentation, then you just leave this slide out. And once again, these slides are just sort of they're just guidelines. You don't have to have any of these slides. You can have all the slides. You can mix the slides up. They can be in a certain order, but it should have a beginning, middle, and end. And as you're going through your pitch and you're going through your slides, remember, I'm on the other side listening and saying, yes, 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 I agree with the story. Let's continue the conversation. So if you have technology, there's a secret sauce, put it in here. Outlook, benchmarks, timelines. So many of you are already in business, which is good. But if we're coming through COVID and you're relaunching or you're shifting or you're pivoting, what I want to know is what's the new product going to look like? What's the new product launch going to be? How are you going to acquire your first customer? And then what are the milestones between now? Say if we were to give you the 10 grand, what's going to happen between the end of the competition to when you actually get your first customer? Are there certain things that you're going to do? Because I'm really thinking, once again, how are they thinking? Like, what's going to happen here? Can they really pull this off? So what you should be doing is sort of priming me and giving me the information that I can say, yes, they really thought this through. So, and if you're not going after a new product launch, it's just, continuation of the same stuff, that's okay. You would take this slide out. But if you're saying to me, like, Manassah, we have this product and blah, 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 and we're going to, we had an in-person childcare and we're doing a complete pivot and it's going to be an online, daycare, like a virtual daycare. That to me is a new product. So tell me about that. So what have you done to develop the program? What have you done to launch the product? Have you identified customers? What have you done to identify them? Do you have customers online already? You know, whatever it might be, this is the information that I'm looking for. All right, and this is the most important slide of the deck that I think. It's the team. So what I want you to do is list off not everybody who works at your company, but the people who are going to help you pull this off. Because nobody ever builds a company by themselves. You all know that there's usually a team of people behind you. So I want you to list out for me who they are and why they're relevant and why they're going to help you build this company. And we have 2 questions. Okay, the first question was, should we include all this information in the initial slide deck, or is this mostly for the video pitches? You should include all of this. You know, I would include all of it. You know, you don't have to, you know, remember, you don't have all kinds of time, but you can give me an overview to let me know that you understand it and you thought about it. And if I want to ask you additional information or follow-up questions, then I can. So a single business owner should not enter. No, a single business owner should enter. That's, you know, if you're just a one-person show, that's awesome. But if you have a team, then you should tell me who's on that team. You know, I want to know that you have people, and your team, it may not be, you know, your team could be a team of advisors behind you. Your team could be your support network. You know, maybe you have a bunch of other business owners, or maybe you're in a success circle that you can bounce ideas off of. Maybe you have an advisory board, you know, that might be 2 or 3 people that you go to with questions. So the team itself could be people that actually work with you. It could be a partner. Maybe you have a partner in crime that you're doing this business with, or it could just be outside resources that you use to help answer questions or bounce ideas off of. What I want to do, what I'm trying to understand is that you're not doing this alone, that you have people that you can go to have questions answered, to help you think through your strategy, to help you think through any issues that you might be having. Because it's always better to have people around you that can help you make decisions, to think differently, think openly. So when I'm sort of evaluating the different teams, it's usually helpful for me to understand, are you making these decisions and running this business in isolation without any outside expertise? Or, you know, have you surrounded yourself with some really smart people that can help you make really smart decisions? Because the individuals who are surrounded themselves with really smart people are the ones who are probably going to be more successful than people who are working solo and independent. But that doesn't mean that you can't, you know, you can't have be a solopreneur. Most people are, but it really is who is helping you. So when I consider the team, I'm thinking about all of the people around you. Okay, financial performance. You should all understand what a cash flow statement is, what a balance sheet is, and what a profit and loss statement is. So for this slide deck, I would want you to have, I don't need you to print your full, you know, 3-year cash flow. I'm not going to spend the time going through that. But what I do want to understand is that you actually have, you know, that you're, like, I want to understand, like right now for a lot of people, what your cash flow position is. Are you burning through cash? Have you run out of cash? Do you have cash reserves? If you can give me the highlights about what your revenues are, what your gross profit is, margins, income, like, you know, maybe, you know, historically you can say, hey, this is what it was pre-COVID, and this is what we anticipated to be, you know, post-COVID. Once again, I'm not looking for super minutia, micro details. What I'm looking for are, does this business owner really understand his or her financials? Do they really understand where the money's coming in? Do they understand their cost of goods sold? Do they understand their profit? Do they understand, you know, what's going to happen? Do they understand how a $10,000 infusion would help these margins? Like, this is what we're looking for. And once again, they don't have to be super detailed, because if I have questions and I'm interested in moving you on to the next, to the next sort of cut, I'm going to ask you, hey, I really like what you said. You told a really good story. I believe in you. I believe in your product. Can you now walk me through the financials and give me some, some more detailed information? And that'll come afterwards. Remember, your goal in this pitch is to get me to say yes, 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 yes. Let's move them on to the next, to the next segment. So you might use, people tend to put in their PowerPoint slides, like a snapshot of an Excel file. And really at this point, I'm looking for just a graph, just the highlights, top line highlights. All right, exit strategy. If some of you, and this is okay, your plan is to build this business and exit it, then I want you to tell me from, like, pretend I'm an investor and we're giving you this money. Like, what are you going to do with it? And how, if you say to me, I want to sell the business in 5 years, that's the goal. Tell me how you want to sell it. Tell me what your exit strategy is. Who's going to buy this? What price do you want to sell it? How do you want to sell it? You may or may not have an exit strategy at this point, which is fine. But if you do, this is what I want. This is when I would want to hear it. So these are all that's sort of like the end of the PowerPoint deck itself. So we have about 20 minutes left to ask questions. I went through this pretty quick, but remember, you don't have to use every single slide. And the point of the PowerPoint deck is to tell a story that resonates with me, so that I say, wow, this business owner told me this really cool story about how the business started, what's going on in the business today due to COVID. They may be crushing it. They may be struggling a bit, they may be on the verge, but they really understand who they are. They understand the business. They understand their clients. They understand how to sell. They understand how to, create a new market. They've really thought through the underlying assumptions are making sense to me, and they understand their financials. Now, you may not understand it like a CFO or an accountant might be, but at least you understand what a profit and loss statement is. You understand the difference between, revenue and cost of goods sold. And you understand how much money you're burning through, like what your cash flow rate is. Whether you're in dire straits or not is irrelevant to me in terms of like awarding the money. What's really relevant is who you are as a business owner and what you're going to do with the winnings and the net impact, if that makes sense. So at that, I have nothing else to say. So I want to open up for questions. We have about 20 minutes. Thoughts, feedback, concerns. Was this a waste of time? Did you like this? All right, so the question is, when creating a new market, what are some tips for specific marketing strategies? That is, it looks like Callie would like to answer this question live. Is that true, Callie?
No, you can take it. It's just a good way to sort through which ones are being answered live and which ones are being written
Gotcha.
answers. But yeah.
So it depends on what market you're going into and who you're going after, because different marketing strategies will exist for different markets you're going into. So if you're going to sell something internationally, maybe there's just trade shows, but if you're just opening up a coffee shop that's local, it could be just using the Nextdoor app. So the specific tips for marketing strategy all depend on what you're selling, to whom you're selling, how you're selling, all of that good stuff. So if we learn more, David, about what you're actually doing, then I can work with you offline and connect you with people that can help you develop some really cool marketing strategies. So Doug says, this is very helpful. This should be an investor pitch. It's actually built off of an investor pitch, but a lot of the information is still the same. So you should be thinking about this as, I actually struggled with, should I use an investor pitch or should I use some kind of modified pitch? But I feel like for people coming out of COVID, it's almost like many of us are relaunching our business, because even if we're in the same business, our customers have all changed. I know that as a consumer, the way I consume and how I'm going to consume is going to be very, very different than what I did before COVID came around. You know, the way I live my life is very different now. So I think that we should all be thinking about this in a way from almost like a relaunch of a new business. Now, this pitch, you're not asking people to invest your money, but what you are asking is people to invest $10,000. We have to make a decision. Who are we going to invest our money into? Is it going to be you? Or is it going to be somebody else? So in a way, it is sort of like an investor pitch. All right, so Kathy says, thanks for all the info. I would be pitching a brand new company idea that I haven't started yet, and all the financial and sales info would be totally hypothetical. Does that matter? No. So Kathy, this is good. If you are pitching a new business, that's great. But what's going to be really paramount to your success is we understand that your numbers are going to be totally hypothetical, pie in the sky. But what we want them to do is be realistic. And for you, I would be asking you about your underlying assumptions and why why you're going to, you have to draw a line in the sand somewhere and say, my sales are going to be X, Y, and Z. I'm going to ask you, why do you believe your sales are going to be X, Y, and Z? Or why do you believe your cost of goods sold? And as long as you can explain to me, why you've chosen numbers, either for cost of goods sold or revenue, or why you're going after one target market versus another, as long as the underlying assumptions are solid, then that's what I'm looking for. So it's okay to be hypothetical. We totally, they have to be sort of realistic, but based in sound assumptions. So as long as they're that, then that's good. Will the judges give you any weight to social impact versus economic impact? Absolutely. So we're looking not at just sort of economic impact, we're looking at the social impact, we're sort of looking at everything. And one sort of participant might have sort of great, great social impact and not a lot, economic impact, or vice versa. But even more importantly, you may have great social impact, but not be able to pull this off. And I'm thinking, oh, they have really good social impact, but they can't pull it off, or they have really high social impact, and we think they can pull it off. The economic impact might not be as high, but we think they can pull it off. I would give more weight to that. And once again, I'm really looking at, can you pull this off? So what I'd like to see is a nice mix of social impact and economic impact, but what I'm really looking for is, can you pull it off? So the follow-up question is, are there any specifics you would like to see in a pitch deck submission, or wow factors you have been impressed by? The wow factors for me, when someone can tell me a story without using a pitch deck, and I understand completely, and I'm thinking, yep, this is who I am. Usually the wow factor for me is usually the personal side. It's usually who the person is. I mean, I've seen a ton of slick pitch decks. I've seen a ton of slick written business plans, strategic growth. I mean, I've literally have reviewed thousands of strategic growth plans, and they can all be worded well. They can be, they can be slick, and they can be edited and really nice. But what it comes down to is the person, and can they pull it off? And to me, that's the wow factor. So if you can wow me, it's wowing me by really understanding your business, the decisions that you're making, why you're making those decisions, and the underlying assumptions that you're using to make those decisions. That to me is the wow factor. All right, the next question. My consulting business is just getting off the ground. I have one good client at the point, and that's it. Congratulations on the first client, Michelle, that's awesome. I also have two possible groups of clients that I'm interested in serving, and I can't figure out which group is best. Where can I find some advisors to help me flesh out these ideas? Well, Michelle, you can always call me. I can sit down there and help you with that. Another good resource is the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center. The SBDC, they provide free consulting services, and there's 4 or 5 different sites around the state, and this is all free. The other thing that you can do is you can go look at SCORE, Service Corps Retired Executives. Service Corps Retired Executives, they are basically what it is people who have worked in corporate America, they're now retired, and they usually have really good insight, and they also have really good connections. So, and they're free and they can sit down and sort of help you think through. If you can sort of tell me offline what kind of consulting business you do, I can maybe connect you to some people who I know who might be in that same vertical or that same industry, and connect you that way, and then they can give you some insight. So I think the best thing I can do is just connect you with people.
I'll connect you both. This is Thais. I'll connect
right.
you, Manassah, to Michelle.
How can we tell a compelling story in the first round just with the pitch deck so that we can make it to the video pitch round? I would really try to use the pitch deck in a way that use a lot, and this is going to sound kind of sort of counterintuitive, but less words are better. So if you can use if you can use pictures, if you can, there's actually a really good pitch deck called Thirst, T-H-I-R-S-T. It's kind of long, but it's a pitch deck that when you read it, it just sort of tells a story, and it's really, really compelling. It's about water. It's really hard to do a pitch deck when you're not telling anything, and we can't hear you, but you have to do it in the best creative way that you can. So don't pack the slides with tons and tons of words. Just give us sort of high impact, a good mix of pictures, maybe illustrations, and that's it. That's the best way to do it. Any other questions? We got about 10 minutes left. None?
Oh, looks like there's one more, Manassah.
One more. All right. Would we be using the same deck if we make it to the final round of the competition? Probably not. We are going to be asking you to sort of consolidate that deck, and I can follow up with you when you make it, being positive when you make it to the next round. And then I can help you sort of refine it and make it so that it's really more targeted to what we're asking you when we get to the second and third rounds. But all the information that you have for the first round will be used to make it to the subsequent rounds. So the information, you won't have to find out any more information. Hopefully that answers your question.
One more.
What should be assumed by your audience?
What should be assumed?
Yeah, assume that the audience is going to be me. Like I'm going to be sitting there listening to it thinking, okay. So, it's really, I'm not lying. It is going to be me.
Literally you.
There's a couple of us, but it will definitely be me. And think about this, you're doing this pitch. So we're all virtual, and we're all going to be reading your PowerPoint decks, listening to your PowerPoint pitches, and then we're going to convene at a separate time. And someone's going to say to me, Manassah, which ones do you think should move forward? And it's probably going to be the ones that I can remember, like the ones that tell me a good story, or there's something about you or your PowerPoint deck or something that says, whoa, this really has the opportunity to really take our money, and do some good with it, have some net impact. So, yeah, I think that's good. Just think about just me, and I'm not a scary guy, so it's all good. This is all fun. Remember, this is fun. It's not, don't sweat it. Just give it your best effort and be honest. And thank you, Lena. Thank you. I'm glad this was helpful. You're welcome, Ben.
So if we have any additional questions, please pop them into chat now, into the Q&A box. And if there are no additional questions, I'll just give it another couple of seconds. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Manasseh, for joining us today and for this wonderful presentation and for clarifying what the expectations are for our pitch competition. The team is very, very excited, and I know that the C3 board and the judges are very excited to see everyone's pitches. So thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for everyone who joined. We really look forward to seeing everyone's pitch decks. And if you have any questions in the meantime, our email addresses were there, but you know how to find us. Just give me a buzz or shoot me an email, or Owen. So thais.demarco@malgbtcc.org, owen.cabral@malgbtcc.org. And we can answer any questions that you may have. And it looks like, we don't have any other questions. So thank you again, Manasseh. This was great.
All right, so final words of wisdom. Go onto the web. We all have access to it. Google pitch decks. There's the Babson Rocket pitch. There's Mass Challenge. There's all kinds of pitches all over the world. I would go look at some pitch decks, go look at some winning pitch decks, see which ones resonate with you, beg, borrow, and steal from what other people have done. If it works well and you like what it does, or you like the look, that'd be great. My pitch deck is just sort of a guide. Don't use it. I mean, if you all come back with the same pitch deck and it all looks the same, then nobody stands out. So use it as a guide, but definitely go Google some pitch decks, find the ones that resonate for you, and use all of the slides, some of the slides. Just make sure that you tell a really compelling story that's memorable, that we can repeat. And good luck. And I look forward to your pitch decks.
Thank you again, everyone. Thank you again, Manasseh. Thank you, team, for putting this together. Thank you, Carly, Michael, Owen, who's on the participant side, making sure that everything is working from that perspective. Thanks, team. And we look forward to seeing your pitch decks. Thanks so much, everyone.